course, it became a fascinating tale. It was a terrible day for AP.
The year was 1945, the final moments of World War II, and Associated Press reporter Edward Kennedy had perhaps the biggest scoop in history. The Germans had surrendered, and he reported it a full day ahead of the competition.
Kennedy was the hero for 48 hours. Then he was suspended by the Army. His credentials were suspended. He was basically suspended by AP and quietly fired several months later.
It was the scoop Kennedy would pay dearly for. He had broken an agreement with the military and other journalists covering the war to keep the surrender confidential until Allied forces authorized it. But as the military's embargo stretched from a few hours to a few days, Kennedy became furious and secretly sent a message out to AP's London bureau.
Once the war is over, you can't hold back information like that. The world needed to know.
Kennedy's story was out within minutes.
Victory in Europe brought wild rejoicing.
People flooded the streets in celebration. The war was over. But for Kennedy, it wasn't a victory. AP's war coverage out of Europe was briefly suspended, and the military expelled Kennedy from France. His fellow war correspondents cried betrayal. Even AP's president condemned his actions.
He knew there were going to be consequences from his actions. I don't know if he expected that they would be as harsh as they were, but he knew he was going to have to take some blame for it.
67 years later, Julia Kennedy Cochran sought to have her father's story published. After being fired by the AP, Kennedy went on to be managing editor of a California newspaper. He died at just 58 after being struck by a car. Now, as the AP CEO Tom Curley offers an apology for the way the company treated her father and the editors who put the story out, Julia is proud to finally clear her father's good name.
I think my father would be absolutely overjoyed to know that he's finally receiving credit for his great journalism.
They did what they should have done, and they stood up to what was obviously political censorship.
In New York, Bonny Ghosh, Associated Press.